All right, I'll go ahead and get started. I'm Bob Sandheinrich. I'm a developer here at Wolfram, and this talk I'm talking about the Paclet Repository. So if you attended the conference last year, there were several talks about Paclets in the Paclet Repository. It was the official announcement of the Paclet Repository was at this conference last year. So this is the first birthday for it. So we got this nice little cake. So this serves as sort of a refresher and update on the Paclet repository and Paclet development in general. And I want to note off the bat that we have an office hour today at 1 o'clock where I will be there and several of my colleagues, and we will be able to, take any questions. So bring your questions, bring your code. We can take time individually to look at things with you there. All right. So quick refresher, and I'll try not to waste too much of my time on this. What are Paclets? For those of you who are coming to this sort of naive, Paclets are the main tool for bundling up Wolfram language content and distributing it. So the most common thing that lives in a Paclet is Wolfram language code, but it can be a lot more, right? So documentation is kind of standard. Any good Paclet will have documentation, but you can also distribute style sheets. You can distribute palettes. You can distribute, entire like sort of apps that run in Wolfram language via Paclets. And it's important to note that they're named. So the name of a Paclet is its identifier, and they're versioned. So you can update Paclets, and it's important to sort of keep track of what versions of a Paclet you are working with sometimes. And then more about the Paclet repository. As I said just a minute ago, it was released last year at this conference. It's the official Paclet distribution mechanism for Wolfram. We've had Paclets have been around for a long time, for decades, but really the only official distribution mechanism was not open to people outside of the company to contribute to. So starting last year, we have a Paclet repository or Paclet distribution system that's open. And it's the first time we've had that, which is great because it's sort of something that people expect for modern software systems. And like other Wolfram repositories, it uses a publisher ID system and a definition notebook if you want to contribute. So if you've submitted a function to the function repository, then you're probably familiar with the publisher ID system and the definition notebook. I should also note here the Paclet repository. Let me add a new button because this is important. Not reviewed like function repository. So in the function repository, when you submit a function, it goes to a review team that checks it out, makes sure it's safe, makes sure that the name is right for the function, that the usage is reasonable, that the documentation looks good. They don't really make sure that the code is efficient or anything like that. And before they would publish it, and there's usually like a back and forth with comments. But the Paclet repository is not like that at all. You push a button, and a few minutes later, your Paclet is live, and it's only only computers between you and being published. No humans. All right. So first birthday. What's in there? Sorry, I saw that another one came in yesterday, and several more versions. So this is out of date. 132 Paclets have been published, and many, the average is something like 5 versions for each Paclet, but some of them have had like 30 updates, and some of them are still the original one. So the mean doesn't mean too much there. Some of the leading publishers with many Paclets are Anton, who is attending this conference. So if you want an honest opinion of working with the Paclet repository from independent source, go bother Anton. We've got Peter Burberry has submitted a lot of Packlets. He's one of our avid users. Kiro Belov has put some great content in there. And then the chemistry team, which is mostly Wolfram employees, but I think there might be some external contributions to that as well. They've submitted several Packlets. And the Packlet repository hasn't really fallen into any domain niche, right? So recently, there's been a lot of things for AI hooking up to LLMs. Has been really popular. There've been multiple people who've sort of put their effort, their ideas of the right way to integrate LLMs have come through the Packlet repository, which is great. There's a lot of sort of pure math Packlets. There's a few like art things, so sort of just beautiful visualizations, packages of code for that. And then a lot of development tools. So if you want to sort of get some neat interfaces or programming utilities to help you become a better Wolfram language developer, look at the Packlet repository. So that's is a great source for that. And also, if you explore around the Packlet repository, you see that the state of these Packlets varies a lot. Some of them are really polished. Like these are like really production ready things with polished documentation. There aren't too many bugs in the code. And this really moved into the phase of updates and maintenance. And some of them are really raw, very prototypey. Maybe there's one well-established function and then sort of just a loose idea of a framework around it and not very good documentation, right? And all of those are great. Like we hope that the prototype things get built out more, but we love people to just get it out there in an early stage to share ideas. It's really useful. And one thing that I didn't necessarily expect when we launched a year ago is that developers within Wolfram Research are increasingly putting early versions of their work on the Packlet repository, making them publicly available. Like the chemistry team that I mentioned earlier is doing this a lot. And this is really useful for everybody because external people can see their work before, maybe a year before they would have otherwise. And the developers can sort of get feedback and on their ideas and sort of try things out with a wider audience than they would have normally. And so it kind of works as a collaborative environment. And then sometimes the things that you see early in the Packlet repository will show up in the released Wolfram language in like a Mathematica build, a few months later, which is kind of a fun way to see it. So I'm going to take a few minutes to just look at highlight a couple of Packlets to show sort of the diversity and also show sort of different ways to use code in Packlets. So this data reshapers one is pretty nice. Here, hold on, let me leave my presentation. Here's the website. Let me see. Let me increase magnification there a little bit. So here's the website for this Packlet. You can see that there's lots of documented symbols. There's sort of this main example section that kind of gives a high-level overview. And you can, and all of the stuff here, you can click and copy and just start using right away. I've already, copied some things out. So here's a data set from the data repository. It's not part of this Packlet. This is just in the standard data repository. You see it's, just 2 columns about, different cars that are made. So now I'm going to install the data reshapers Packlet. I'm going to load the code with needs. Looks like there's some bug maybe in that Packlet, but I think we can ignore that one. And now cross-tabulate this function that exists. If I say context of that symbol, this is in Anton's data reshapers Packlet context. But since I called needs, that context is on my context path, so I can use this symbol right away without giving a long context. So this is sort of the traditional normal way to use a Packlet is to call needs, and then the symbols are available. And this cross-tabulate does this nice thing where it turns this 2-column table into like this 2-dimensional data set where the values are tallies or counts of the original data. So I don't know a one-line way to do that in the Wolfram language. So I've used this a few times. It's pretty nice. Another nice Paclet is this open chemical systems. I'm not a chemist, so I can't say that I really use this regularly, but I definitely looked into it when it came out and thought it was pretty interesting. So it's modeling chemical processes as graphs, as these sort of discrete systems in what's called a Petri net. And it has code for doing simulations and visualizations. So for example, here it runs a simulation of this reaction, and it creates a visualization of some chemical concentrations throughout the process. And if you'll notice here, I didn't call needs at all. So the way this Paclet is being used is with these little lozenges or blobs, whatever you want to call them, that are Paclet symbol. If I do, sorry, before I evaluate it, let me look at the input form of it. Oh, sorry, well, that's evaluating place. Let me just do Command-Shift-I on this thing. Let me paste it here, Command-Shift-I. And this is Paclet symbol of the Paclet with the symbol name. And when I evaluate it, it becomes a symbol from the Paclet, but it does more than that. It ensures that the Paclet is downloaded and extracted, and that the primary context of the Paclet is loaded so that the symbol is available. And this is really useful. It does not permanently install the Paclet, so it doesn't use Paclet install. So it's really great for like trying out a Paclet from the Paclet repository. If I were to quit my session, it would be like I'd never use this Paclet next time. So this is sort of a great trial tool for Paclets from the Paclet repository. Sort of automates all of the initial loading. If the Paclet is already installed, it'll just use what's already installed. Another Paclet that I played around with and enjoyed was Peter Burberry's Recreational Math. So this is a collection of just sort of fun ways to waste an hour exploring math. Sometimes you need to remember that math can be fun, right? So for this one, I'm calling needs, but instead of just having the primary context of the Paclet, I'm saying none here. So this will load. I've already installed it. I left out the Paclet install line because I'd done that previously. I should have had Paclet install here as well. So this will load the context, but it will not put it on the context path. So I can't use, if I take this diagonal walk plot and I run it, it doesn't know what that is, right? Because this context is not on my context path. So now I need to use the full context. And this can be important to use if, say, there was another Paclet in the Paclet repository with a diagonal walk plot. So, there'd be a name collision, and I want to avoid that. So I don't want to put this on my context path necessarily. And this is very common to do if you're using a Paclet that calls recreational math, and internal to your Paclet, you want to load this, it's really smart to use this and then have the full context, because that way the end user of your Paclet won't end up with Peter's context on the context path. But as you can see, like exploring these different walks along a path is kind of interesting and fun, and a good way to spend an hour, maybe. And the last Paclet I wanted to highlight is this Max RD. It's another chemistry one. For this one, I'm going to call needs, and instead of none, I'm going to assign it a context alias. Oh, shoot. What am I doing? What happened here? Do I need to do a Paclet install? So when you do this, instead of, oh, shoot. Do I have a typo? Okay, there it is. I just hadn't installed the Paclet. Right. So instead of so instead of not putting this on and not putting anything on the context path, or like needs with none, or putting this on the context path like needs with just the name, where this would be on the context path, this renames it with an alias. So now all the symbols in there are available in this crystal context. So you can kind of control the context yourself when you load it this way, which is really useful. And this Paclet has all this crystallography stuff in it. So it has these, it's built on top of the chemistry stuff that's in, there's an interesting one, that's in Wolfram Language, but it sort of has these dedicated crystallography functions that are really useful, including these like interfaces and visualizations. So this is another cool one to check out. So this is just like a quick run through some of the, how am I doing on time? Oh, okay. Use more time there than I thought. So sort of a quick run through of the sort of the breadth of domains that are in the Paclet repository. So I'm going to try to run real quickly through contributing to the Paclet repository. And if you're starting fresh, you can use create notebook of Paclet resource, or there's a file new repository item Paclet. It'll launch this dialog. You can choose a directory where you already have a Paclet if you have one, or you can make a new directory and it'll create the Paclet layout for you. If you're interested in seeing that, look at my talk from last year, because from this tech conference last year, I go through that whole thing. So this year, I'm going to do something a little different. Hold on, let me exit full screen here. And I'm going to update a Paclet that I've already published. So you can see this is the definition notebook that I created previously. Let me magnify this. And this didn't magnify, but you can see in February, I published version 1.2.3 of my games Paclet. So I want to add some, code to this, some new functions. And I could click on one of these and just modify in the package editor, which has all these great new features. But I find when you're working with multiple files, like for Paclet development, using an IDE is really helpful. So I have VS Code here. Let me see. Does this magnify the way I expect? Yeah. Okay. So here we go. And I'm going to, I usually, when I want to add a new file, I copy an existing one. I rename it. I'm going to call it Wordle. Hopefully there's some people who haven't quit playing Wordle yet. I'm sure there's lots of people who played it a year ago. And now, I'm just piling everything into one context in this Paclet, which isn't great practice for big development projects, but this is sort of a small, maybe medium-sized one. And I wrote this code earlier because I figured I might be short of time. And I'm just going to paste it here. So here's 4 new symbols that I want to add to my Paclet. So I have $Wordle words, and I want Wordle free and Wordle. So here I'm putting them up here so that they'll be declared in Bob Games instead of Bob Games private. And so Bob Games is the primary context of my Paclet. And then what's the last one? Wordle match. All right, so here's 4 new symbols in my Paclet that I want people to know about. Then I want to declare these in my Paclet info file. So this means that if the Paclet is installed, the Wolfram language will immediately know about these symbols. They'll be black at startup without even having to load the Paclet. And there's just other conveniences that they'll be in your autocompletes. There's lots of nice things that will happen because I've declared them in my Paclet info file. All right, so there I've declared them in my Paclet info file. This Paclet this is like my loader file. So this games.wl is the when somebody calls needs on the context, this is the file that gets loaded, and then it loads all the other files. So I want to add Wordle to there. All right, so I think I've added all of this code to my Paclet. So now I'm going to come back here and I'm going to run check. Oh, and it tells me my definition notebook is out of date. It's an old one. Do I want to update it? I'm going to say yes. You know, we're regularly updating the definition notebook framework. Oh, that reset it to 100% magnification too. We should probably fix that. All right, let me finish that before I. Okay, so it found 3 issues. Let me magnify this. So it's telling me that there's 3 issues. One is that the Paclet version is lower than the published resource. All right, I click on this and it has helpers. I'm going to say specify a new version. I get this dialog that helps me pick out versions. I'm going to say this is a minor update. And that opens my Paclet info file and asks me and it makes the change automatically. And it asks me if I want to save it. I say yes. All right, and then I'll close that. And let me see, what are the other issues? This contains very large images. All right, I'll let it sort of, there was a helper just to reduce the resolution, to reduce file size. And then it's telling me that this is just big. And I think I'm just going to let that one be a problem. I'm going to say don't show again for this cell because it's just sort of inherently a big output from that function. All right, now I want to write some documentation. So I open my toolbar. I say documentation tools, open palette. This says games. I'm sure this is really small. Okay, it looks like I can magnify. Here we go. So it already knows about my Paclet. I'm going to say I want a new function page. I'm going to document $Wordle words. And now I have this documentation thing. This is a dollar symbol, so I want to get rid of those brackets. And I want to say lists the 5-letter words available. It's not the best verb for Wordle. Appropriate. And now and then within this notebook, this need statement is automatically evaluated. So I can just say $Wordle words. And if I evaluate that, it's going to run and it's going to give me this. That's kind of a huge output for a documentation. So, and then I'll say list the eligible words. All right, eligible. All right, so this is sort of a minimal documentation page. Could be much better, but I'm going to save it because I'm running out of time. And I'm going to come here. I'm going to hit refresh on this. And you should see here's my new documentation page. And I'm going to build. And this will take a few minutes. So I'm going to, where'd my presentation go? Come back here for a minute and talk briefly about what's coming up. So a big initiative coming soonish is dependencies. So if you have a Paclet and it depends on another Paclet, which then depends on another Paclet, it's a really complicated problem. And you know, package managers and software in general struggle with this. And we're going to try to create a decent solution for our system coming soon. And then better administration for managing your published Paclets for publishers, including a pre-release version sort of specification. So you can publish something that people can use if they want to, but it won't get downloaded by default. All right, so that's sort of the end of the talk. The build is completed. It didn't give me any warnings. So I'm going to go ahead and say submit to repository. And while that runs, I can look at the questions. And if it doesn't finish by the end, so be it. All right, so let's see. Seth is asking, could you add a recently added button to the Paclet repository? Oh, yes, there's that should exist. Paclets.com. if I go to the all page, you can sort by date. But the function repository, I think, makes this much more accessible. Like there's a button down here at the homepage. Maybe that's what Seth is asking for. That's a good idea. We should do that. I agree. And then email that gets pushed out weekly. We've talked about that. This doesn't have quite as much throughput as the function repository, so it might be more like monthly. We're a little hesitant because we don't review this content, so we don't really want to send out emails blindly about content. But maybe that doesn't really matter. Maybe we can communicate this was done, but we didn't do it. All right. Seth has a simple one-liner to do across. Okay. I said I couldn't come up with a one-liner, but Seth, the master of query, can. So yeah. Okay. Good. Thank you. Let's see. It looks like Todd was hoping to answer some questions. And Anton's saying the Paclet system can be used to publish books. Absolutely, it can. You should check in on my colleague Bradley, who has ideas about that, and maybe at some point having a sort of book branded repository that might just be Paclets as an implementation. Anton says he's not really independent. I know, but pseudo independent. And it's not a bug. Okay. I'm sorry, I defamed you. Maybe I don't know why it gave a couple messages when I loaded the Paclet. Maybe it's expecting to auto load or something. Okay. Let's see. There's a lot of comments. Anton uses IntelliJ instead of VS Code. I've used IntelliJ in the past. It's good. I slightly prefer VS Code, mostly because I think our plugin works a little bit better in VS Code. Right. I think that's the questions. Let's check back in on my publication and see what it says. It is being published. So usually that takes a few minutes, and then I'll get an email telling me it's published. We can check on, let's see, games. Let's see if I have 1.3 here yet. Probably not. Oh, it's already done. Great. So it's published. I probably have an email waiting for my inbox. And you can see $Wordle words is here. So this is all updated, and it's as easy as that. All right. So we're right on time. Go check out another talk. I know there's one about robots and one about graphs. I plan on watching both. I don't know which one I'll do live. Thank you very much.